Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Legal and General Just Covered podcast, where we listen to advisors' views and opinions in the intermediary space. My name's Wayne.
And I'm Hazel, and today we're really lucky to be joined by Monica Bradley of MB Associates. So Monica is the founder and managing director, and we're really excited to hear what her views and opinions are. So welcome, Monica. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
And in terms of your journey then, I guess starting from there is always a really good space. What led you to becoming the founder of MB Associates?
I guess many years ago, I really felt like I always kind of wanted to work for myself. I kind of had a vision of having a financial services business. And I kind of visualized it a very long time ago. And I've got a real, a very natural thing that I like helping people. I had a real... enjoyed figures. I enjoyed figures. So that for me was about looking at becoming I started in wealth a long time ago and became a mortgage and protection. And I wanted to really have lots of like-minded advisors who had the same beliefs as I had. And that's where it all began a long time ago.
So that was a vision to build a business that early on?
Yeah. It really was. I mean, I guess I understood early on when I was in a wealth side that I really enjoyed helping people. I had this and it didn't matter where they were from. They were from all walks of life. And I really did get a lot out of helping them with finances. The world of finance and the world of insurance is huge, and it can really be quite difficult for people to understand. And I wanted to make sure that we could, whoever I worked with, whether it was just me or a team of people, would really, every client would feel valued. So everything that they would discuss, and it was really important for me that no question that anybody would ever ask would be a wrong question, and they shouldn't feel ridiculous about asking a question because there's so much to insurance and finance. So I did see that, and I felt it very early on when I started advising.
And I think it's lovely to hear you say that kind of inclusivity, isn't it? Making financial services really inclusive for people, regardless of their level of knowledge or what their background is. And one thing I would say from coming into your team, and it was virtual, I did a couple of sessions, but I felt that it was one of the most inclusive teams I've actually gone in to do a session with as well, which was, so obviously you're walking the walk as well as talking the talk there, because genuinely the passion for your team doing the right thing is huge. And you've grown the business to be quite large now, haven't you? You've got a fairly large team of advisors. And how's that been?
I mean, it's fantastic. And sometimes I don't actually think where that has come from. And it really has been like a little tree, a tree that's grown their branches getting bigger and bigger. And that's really, it's been interesting. It's been tough. No one says being a business owner is easy. But, my passion for it is equally as much now as it was over 30 years ago. I still have the passion to do the right thing for clients. And I honestly think that comes across. And I think that's why we can build, and so many clients want to come to us because of trust. And, when you're dealing with people's health and insurance and financial services, they want to be with somebody that they can trust and feel really valued by. So it's been a really good journey. We're still growing, and we still got things to get right. But yeah, it's been good. And I sometimes have to pinch myself and say, gosh, have we really got, 4,500 active clients that we write to every month? Because we do.
And how do you find, in terms of, a lot of businesses have sort of that vision, and then they have like a mission statement, a strap line that people sort of all work towards and go by. What's the strap line? Is there a sentence that you use, something that everyone works towards?
We basically, I make it very clear to my entire team. We've got a really clear vision, a really clear culture. And when anybody joins the team, we let the team have a handbook so they know exactly where my strengths, where my beliefs have come from, who we are as a business. and equally for our internal team, but everyone for our clients. So we say that we're people's, we're their lifelong there for their lifelong financial needs, and that's what we. And you note the word lifelong, because I've never been interested in just being a transactional broker, a transactional advisor. It's all about the long-term relationships with the client, and we deal with so many clients now that have 3 and 4 generations, and so that goes without saying that people come back to us and they trust us.
And I'm sensing you probably, when recruiting and stuff, you want the right type of people for the culture of your business. So how do you go about that? How do you make sure that tree that you're growing, it's not growing too fast, it's growing in the right way, the roots are well established, that type of thing? How does that work?
I kind of know. I don't think we in business, and whatever business we do, should ever be ashamed of saying that fit might not be right for you and that fit might not be right for us. So it has to work both ways. And I obviously look at like-minded, self-motivated, enthusiastic, with the same values of integrity. And I am quite good at spotting that very early on. So I look for that, and because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with clients on some really, really important everyday, things that are right at the core of everybody's lives. So we have to have the right team to deal with that. So, for me, it has to be, and I have to spot that very early on when I meet them.
And I think it's really easy, isn't it, when an outsider looks into especially the mortgage and protection industry, to think, oh, you just sell someone a mortgage, not realising the magnitude of, well, that is a lifelong decision on what's going to happen in that person's finances. And then the protection side of it is that's actually extremely important. If you don't mention it, that is life-changing if they make a decision either to not or to take it. And I think that's when you get into the industry, you really realise the importance of the person sat across from a customer, opening their mind up to all these different aspects, isn't it?
It's caring, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people we speak to, and you're a classic example of that, of someone who cares. Yeah. You're trying to build a team who care about the customers' lives, what's happening, know them personally, know the names of their kids, know why they live, where the kids go to school, that type of thing. You care, and that being on that journey with them.
Yeah, it's caring, and it's also, I think, having an ability to be able to really have awkward conversations, because it isn't always, you're asking some. It's about being able to probe the relevant questions, because let's be honest, if nobody really wants to talk about what happens if they die, what happens if they get ill, and really drill down to the crux of what really happens on a daily basis. And we have to get, in a very complex relationship world we live in now, all things have changed. You have to have an ability to be able to ask some very awkward questions, and it is about caring. And if we didn't care, we would brush over those. So it's our job to actually make people aware of lots of things that they absolutely wouldn't even think about.
And that's a really interesting point. When we're talking about questioning, we've got sessions that we run around the questioning skills part and all that type of thing, and be able to ask them in the right way. When you talk about drilling down, so when you're doing that, how far down in terms of what would happen if do you go? How does that work for you? Is it really playing it out on a normal life basis in that regard?
Well, to be honest, it isn't playing it out. It is a normal life basis, because it is life. It is not about, we're not playing anything out here. We all come across situations on a daily basis. And if we're talking to clients that may have family with, several partners, I have no problem asking what provision have they made for their children from a previous relationship, because that is reality. And when you get ill or you lose your job, do you think that sort of, if I hadn't have asked those questions, or my team aren't, comfortable enough to ask those questions, it wouldn't then be like a playing it out. It would be absolutely, we should have made that person aware of that. And I don't want to live with that. So it's our job to make sure that everybody really has got fully understanding of just, it doesn't matter whether they do anything or not, but we are the professionals that have to make them aware of these situations. And I do drill right down once I know their situation. I haven't got any problem probing.
And with your team as well, because that's a cultivated skill, doing that in the right way, isn't it? In the way how you're asking those questions and how you're developing it in line with that particular relationship with that client. How do you ensure that the team, the way you're doing it, and the flexibility maybe you demonstrate with clients, how do you ensure the team do that as well?
Well, I kind of understand, and I know in the team who will maybe find that a little bit awkward. And sometimes I don't think certainly certain questions and insurance side of it is for everybody. So I have to make sure that I know who in the team is happy and to drill down and ask relevant questions, whether it be financial or whether it be about somebody's health or whether it be about the situation, because we do regular training. I know we do regular training in terms of, probing questions and maybe what if scenarios, because I like to, and I use that terminology actually when we're talking to clients, is I say to them, I'm going to do the what if scenario is, so I'm going to ask you some questions here is what if this, what if that happened, and we kind of go on down a various number of questions, and obviously with my team I know the ones that I know the team, if they feel awkward and they don't feel right about asking relevant questions or indeed doing some insurance and protection side, we simply wouldn't have them do it because it isn't for everybody. It has to be the right, and it has to be, you have to again, it has to work for both the client and for the advisor. So lots of work, knowing the team, understanding the team and spending time with them really does help make a difference.
That creates such a safe environment as well, doesn't it? Because somebody could be an extremely competent, extremely good mortgage advisor, but actually the minute they have to tip into that, as you said, more difficult conversation, that trickier part, it's just not something that they're ever going to be incredibly good at, no matter how much training, because their core mindset and values doesn't align. And I think it's brilliant to hear that actually people can still be very skilled in one area or very skilled in the protection area, and it works for your business, you make it work, but also works for the client. Because no client would want to sit through that either, would they? Going through a brilliant mortgage. Because I definitely, when I was a regional manager in mortgages as well, I definitely recognised that. And I worked for a corporate, so I had no choice. My team all had to do both. But you would listen to their calls or listen to their appointments, you'd think they're absolutely brilliant. They've got such a good conversation going. The minute the protection part started to weave in, it was honestly like the tone would change, the body language would change. You could then feel the customer started to change, and you do probably look back on it and think it's maybe a bit of a disservice to those customers because they weren't given the opportunity to turn that person down because they didn't actually ever understand it fully in the first place. And
that's a really interesting way of putting it, that actually the customer then kind of feels awkward, because I think if an advisor feels awkward, the customer will sense that they feel awkward, because we've all had in sales training over the years is just say stop, just keep silent, don't ask anything. It's that awkward moment, isn't it? So I think it's so important now, because I think specialist and specialism is the way forward for especially when you're dealing with protection and and vulnerable people, vulnerable mortgages, vulnerable. You just need to be comfortable. And as a business owner, it's really important that I understand each and every one of my team. And we have meetings regularly to just, I make it a very open culture within the business, that if there is anything anybody's unsure about or any ideas, they come to us with that. So we are doing the right thing, because fundamentally this is all about the right outcomes for our clients.
And I guess starting with that client first, you're never going to go wrong. In terms of like growing that business, getting your team to give you feedback, starting with that end user of your business will really help you. Not one, keep safe and compliant, but two, make sure that business is always evolving in the right way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you know, I can give examples of exactly that. You know, you've got I have clients and that tell all their families, many clients within our whole client bank for my team as well, that, you know, they make it clear to their loved ones, if anything ever happens, you contact this business. And that's that comes with some pressure, but it shows that the trust and the integrity that we give to them over the long term, because they're basically putting their lives into our hands to be able to look after their loved ones, you know, after. So, and that means financially, whether it be an investment portfolio client, as somebody just buying a first home, somebody with children, or we doing their insurances, it really is.
As you say, it's their financial needs, as you say, that life of theirs, and making sure you're covering absolutely everything. One thing in particular I love is the fact that you've got the different staff members in, you're appreciating what they're good at and what they're not so good at. And you're not applying a blanket approach. You know, this is a sales script. This is a way you're supposed to do something or an advice process. Obviously, you'll have that, but you're appreciating those that have got strengths and weaknesses and all of that. Yeah, it's just like clients. They're different people.
Yeah.
Your employees are different people as well, obviously.
Yeah, I do, and I recognise that everybody's different, and you know, and equally, when I think back when I was starting out, I wouldn't have been so confident asking certain questions. So you have to recognise that in your team and recognise. But fundamentally, I think the passion and everything that comes from the top. Once I believe in that, it filters down throughout the business. So and everybody knows that actually I won't, you know, have it any other way. It has to be this professional, this good, and this, you know, what we do for our clients. There isn't any half measures.
And that messaging is constant and regular, isn't it? So you're constantly you're not deviating from that. So everyone's eyes wide open. So. They know exactly.
Oh yes, I don't go up and down. It's consistent, and the passion is there from, you know. And the days that I don't feel passionate about it anymore is the day to say, actually, I'm going to hang up my boots. Because I think I wouldn't be doing the right thing, and that is what I'm all about, is doing the right thing for a client. And as we build, you know, many more clients and more advisors have to come in and join a really like-minded, you know, team full of integrity.
I'm sensing, you know, from your team, you're there to make a difference, and that's what you're doing on an everyday basis. You slightly touched on it earlier on around where you're trying to help people affecting their lives, obviously, hopefully positively from a financial perspective, when life has happened to them maybe, and it's of a negative experience. You know, could be they've ill, they've been off sick, can't work, all those types of things. When it comes to the claim, I suppose, the time you mentioned earlier, when if something happens, come to us. How have you've had plenty of examples of that over the years, I'm sure. How involved do you get, I suppose, in those scenarios with your customers?
Well, again, everybody in the business and the entire team know that that's something that I really care very much about. I mean, obviously, huge amounts of empathy you need straight away, but it's about kicking into straight away the minute that phone call comes through, is to take charge of those clients that are clearly going through a very, very difficult time. You know, I've had several conversations, many conversations over the years, and I've sat with partners on the phone and I've said, and I've been to bedsides of ill patients to fill in trusts, and I've actually said, look, the best gift you can give to your partner is, you know, to leave them a home without any financial debt, and that is reality. So we hold their hand from the start. We deal with the insurers. We try and you know, make it such an taking away any further pressures, because they're clearly either going through somebody being ill or somebody having sadly died, or so we because it's a minefield. And I think if I could write a book, or if I could bring a series of programs into what do you do when somebody gets ill, or what do you really understand what happens if somebody dies, I would, because I always say, and you need to be as organised preparing to die and die in death that you are when you're alive, because there's quite a lot to go with it. So we hold our clients' hands from start to finish, and by that I mean it's not just about getting the insurance paid out. That's fundamental, one part of it. But we're making sure that, because there might be multiple policies, there might be death in service through their company, there might be different policies, there might be pensions somewhere. But fundamentally, it's about pulling all that together and understanding what it really takes, and understanding where you go, because there's a rather large booklet called Probate, and that isn't straightforward. And I don't think anybody understands just what is involved in, first of all, the claim, and then what comes after that. So we take them right through to the end. And I really mean that, we take them right through. We recently had one of my young advisors had his first 3 or 4 claims, and he comes to us and say, what would you do in these circumstances? So we're teaching the whole team as well, how you handle that side of it and what we do as a business, because there's a lot involved. But I know that I have to do it for those clients, because that's the word I've given them, and we do, and we carry it through from, for every single client.
So the team are feeling it too. I'm sensing from that, in that said client, maybe you've had a claim, someone's died, maybe a partner's died, or they've been ill, whatever. I take it you're sharing that with the rest of the team, so they're learning about what you're doing to help that client, if you know what I mean. Not even from the advisor who's given the advice, but all of them.
Yeah. And in fact, they've actually asked me to speak to one young girl recently that lost her loved one very, very suddenly, and I made sure that my advisor was with me when we spoke to them, so they know just to the extent as to what we go to and offer our support, because it is a minefield, to start with. It really is, the insurance paying out is one part of it, as I said, and it's understanding just what happens after that.
That's the bit that I know, and I'll hold my hands up. When I was advising, I probably didn't have as much knowledge on until I joined L&G from a provider point of view, because then it was when I started looking at what goes behind putting something in trust, why it's so important. Obviously, I did that when I was an advisor, but I probably didn't understand the magnitude of actually the impact that will have on probate, the impact it will have on how quickly people get their funds. And that's something that definitely, if we don't always in the industry understand, then the customer's definitely not. And I think definitely when you're saying that big book of probate and how long that actually takes for someone to go through, for them to know that you'll guide them through the whole thing is just what a comfort for them from the minute they start doing business with you all the way through, as you said, that lifetime of advice, isn't it? So.
I do, and I think it's a super strength, and to have as a business, it's a super strength, and to actually simple thing like explaining simply to a client just what that trust means, just how, why would you put it in trust? Well, you're not waiting for probate, and, just so many reasons, and payable outside the estate, but that when you explain that to them, it's vital. And we all know the word pay it to the right person at the right time. And that is a fact. That's what happens. And that's one small part of the process. I think there's one small part. So, talking to somebody about insurance at the beginning, and then taking them right through many years later, maybe, or 3 or 4 years later. And I can still remember, they call me an elephant in the office. I do remember everything. But, I can remember people's when they would sit in front of us and said, actually, I don't really feel like I need that. And then when they have done it, and then when they've claimed, it's a very powerful message. And I know we've put some case studies on our website as well. And it just really reiterates that it doesn't come for 95-year-old people that have had a great life. This comes for anyone.
And I think that's the bit that's really key and demonstrates your care, is that you remember those customers. And I think, as you said right at the start, nobody ever wants to take that call, do they, of a customer saying that their life's been turned upside down. but that call is so much easier to be able to help that customer if they've, decided to opt into some of the advice that they've been given. But then I think what's interesting is I did have a case one time, somebody in my team had seen a customer and they didn't take the policy, and it was really interesting. The customer phoned me to say their partner phoned me to say, unfortunately, passed away, what on earth do we do? And that, I'll never forget that phone call. That will stick with me forever. I could even still tell you the child's name, how old they were, what they did for a living. And they weren't my customer, it was one of my teams, but I will never take that for granted ever again. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's getting people to realise the magnitude of those decisions
very much
being made
so.
in the room.
Yeah. And I think, and then when they do understand them and you can have an open and an honest chat with them, the emphasis is back on them, if you like. But I think you will always remember things like that.
And where do your team bring the conversation in then? What do you have, a kind of set structure, or do you leave it up to them? How do you suggest that they start that protection conversation?
Basically, I also think that it isn't always doable at the upfront. I think, people are in a state of fraughtness and stress sometimes when they're, especially today, when they're trying to put in, multiple offers in different properties. So it isn't always something, and I think I try and encourage my team to really get to drill down to understand exactly what each advisor, which every client has got. So you can't advise without knowing what they've got. You just simply can't. So it might be done. And in the business, we have a couple of protection-only advisors. So if somebody isn't perhaps doing protection and they're just doing the mortgages, they will hand it over to that, and it works much better if they hand it over to a specialist anyway. So it's normally done at some point within when, if it's a purchase or a remortgage. But, fundamentally people's circumstances are changing. So, they don't stay in the same situation 25, 30 years. Their situation changes. So it's something that we've got to be much more involved at, much more regularly for existing people, existing clients that have done business, because rapidly changing world and rapidly faster world that people's circumstances change. So I think it's a bit like when I'm saying to somebody about doing a will. You can only do a will as to what is where you are today. Yes, you have what if scenarios, but you can't say, well, when I have 10 dogs and 3 cats, and you have to do it as to where we are today. You can't do it any other way. So that's the same as with insurance. But I think as a business, we have to look at really being able to go back to people on a regular basis, much more regularly than we're doing, because there isn't a really right time, Hazel, to actually, I think it's ongoing now.
And you mentioned early on anyway, I think you said you write to your customers or send an email or something, or a newsletter every month. Obviously, with the consumer duty in now and customer understanding, keeping close to your clients is really, really important.
Yeah.
What other ways do you do? And are you thinking of going forward in which you could do that?
We write relevant, depending on what's happening. Obviously, when it's base rate related, it's base rate. But we do write to our clients. When we were going through COVID, we upped it to twice a month. With obviously relevant content. That's really important. So, what sort of knowledge would we want to know? What would I want to know if we were going through this? What does the payment holiday mean? So we're sending out regularly content which might be about the importance of power of attorneys, which was 2 months ago. What they mean, the importance of making a will. So I write to our clients every month. It isn't about a remortgage or contacting them. It's really important. And 51% on average open. We have an open rate, a really good high open rate. Lots of people say we really look forward to seeing and listening to your content. So with consumer duty, obviously you need to have everything's about the right outcome for your clients. So and understanding what ones that we might not have been able to even do a mortgage or insurance for, but knowing and understanding we've had to make some changes to some data changes and some data points, because you need to understand the ones that we haven't done business with, and if so, and why we haven't, and be able to actually display that. So yeah, we're really we're all about, the client and keeping them aware of all scenarios and everything we do within the business.
It's encouraging them, isn't it, to contact you when they need to contact you. Do you do much on social media as well to sort of back that up as on the back of the actual contact directly with the clients?
Yes, I do a lot on LinkedIn, and we do Facebook, and we have a good old Instagram. I have to say I haven't addressed the old TikTok yet, but I think I'll leave that one to my younger advisors.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, the reach that we can have now, but only if we make use of it. So I find it really interesting that you've obviously got these clients that you take on a journey throughout their lifetime, but you're also being that advice that everyone wishes they had, almost, because if you don't work in financial services, you don't know about power of attorneys, you don't know about base rate change, what it actually means, other than what's said on the news, which is what really we're programmed to want to hear. But actually all these little nuances are so important as people are planning their financial journey. So even, I guess, if they come back to you or not, or they do further business or not, you're still impacting their lives regardless in so many different ways, which is just brilliant. And I guess that's probably why you're forefront of their mind when they think, I've had a financial change, something's gone wrong, I'll call MBA Associates, because you're always that comfort blanket there for them on a monthly basis.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Very much so. And there are so many things to tell them. I must be very boring to go out with, because I talk about this sort of thing a lot. But it's true, and there is so much to it, isn't there? So financial, and the world of insurance, and power of attorneys, and wills, and and it's just really making sure that I have that power to make sure I can get that message across to as many people as we can.
You definitely know you've become boring. I had one day the other week that one of my friends said her husband broke his leg playing football, but he's a self-employed contractor. And the first thing she said was, "No, don't ask me if I took that insurance." She was like, "I know what you're going to say." And they had, but she said, "Don't make that the first thing you tell me." And it's funny, isn't it, how in the industry we take for granted what we know and what we're knowledgeable on. But actually, people, as you said, they have their lives. That's a daily thing happening to people all the time. Their lives changing, the financial risk changing on a day-to-day basis. And as you said, I think we assume it's boring, but it is actually quite interesting. My friend, one of my other friends, works in marketing for a big retail kind of sportswear, and she said to me that she actually loves hearing financial information, and because she's not ever been taught it ever at school or in her career, whereas we, as I said, take it for granted working in this industry that, from a young age, you just learn these things naturally, don't you? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I talk regularly about it. I haven't got a problem with it. I think it's great that I'm still really believe and passionate about it, and I'll never ever get away from that.
It's important. It is. You only have to look at the cost of living, and everything's going up, as we know. And when life happens, when things go wrong, people's finances need to be intact. So the fact that you're using different ways of doing it, whether you're emailing customers, whether you're going on social media, whether the culture of your team, those sort of subliminal touch points, if you like, with regards to making sure they're going to think when something goes wrong, they're going to think of MB Associates. That is hugely important, and something that all businesses can think of going forward. It's one thing sitting in front of a client and honing your questioning skills and being flexible and all of that, but being able to bring that into one wholesome package where you're with the customer for the whole of their lifetime, and they think of you and they understand why you've recommended stuff. That cannot be underestimated.
No,
amazing
stuff. I guess on the flip side, that's also if something goes right, they'll want to speak to him.
Of course,
like,
totally.
I want to grow my family. I want to buy a new home. Oh, it'll be Monica and our team will be able to help me with that, and that's. Great.
And you get a lot of that though, don't you? You get a lot of people referred into you. Get a lot of
referrals in. Yeah,
kudos, all that
that's
type
where
of
the business has really grown from. Is for people referring into us. So, and that still happens. I was in the hairdresser last week, and girl there just has a child, and she says, "Well, I haven't really got a lot." And I said, "But have you done your guardianship arrangement within your will?" And No. And once you explain that to, a young girl, single parent, that's what she needed to do, that's what she's gone and done, and that's to contact the will writers. So it doesn't matter, it's everywhere. Every single person, I say to my team, every single person that's walking up and down this road requires us, and never forget that.
That's so
what
true.
A great, that is the strapline. That is it, definitely, because it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're looking at that guardianship, whether you're looking at power of attorney for parents at a certain age or whatever, that is the strapline.
Yeah, so
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been absolutely brilliant to hear about your business, your team. For me, the thing that's really stuck out is culture is everything. I think that's definitely something that I'm taking on board from speaking to is if I was ever going to go, and I won't, but if I ever set up a financial firm, culture is the most key thing to getting your clients looked after and your team working in the way that you need. And it sounds like you've got it spot on. So thank you for sharing a lot of that with us, Monica.